Wednesday, March 4th, 2020, Maneco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. So I've always wondered the last few years, and even more, how we were going to cope as a society, as an economy, especially in the West, with the huge debt problem that we have. And why do we have a debt problem? Well, because we went off a sound money system many, many years ago. I would argue it was 1914 was the key year. And of course, that was the year when we had World War I kickoff, and the major European countries went off a sound money gold system and went into a debt-based system. The United States, of course, has been more gradual. They've joined in the party, of course, later on, but also the world as a whole went off a gold kind of standard in 1971. And why is that important for debt? Well, because politicians and bankers, under a sound money, honest money system of gold and silver, they're not able to create all the debt and credit that they have been able to do so. There's a limit to it. Politicians or statists, as Alan Greenspan called them in his 1966 essay, Golden Economic Freedom, said that statists hate the discipline of an honest money system. So how have they gotten away with it? How have they convinced the vast majority of the public that they need to be on this hamster wheel of debt, always trying to have more than they can afford, always consuming more than they should? And all debt is really is consuming future production, is having something today that you haven't paid for. And I think we're all to blame for it. Not only the powers that be, they've convinced us in several different ways. And this is what I want to talk about today. They've convinced us through crisis that the best way was to get out of an honest money system. The crisis was, of course, World War I. They called it an existential crisis. They've also convinced us through the media, through academia, through politics. They've convinced people that people can have everything they need, that they don't have to really produce anything. They don't have to do the work. They've basically done that through the political system, democracy, right? Socialism, corporatism as well. Corporations are supported. They were bailed out in '08 as well. The general public, they're promised everything. Oh, you can have this for free, that for free. And they've divided us as well to keep us at each other and to keep us from looking at the real problem, which is their strategy of gaining control through inflation, through crisis. And that's where we come to today. I've spoken before in the last few weeks what I think the present crisis is. It's an engineered crisis. And I've talked about this book briefly, The Energy Non-Crisis by Lindsay Williams. Is this a non-crisis? Of course not. Was the energy crisis in the 70s a non-crisis? Not really, but it was engineered crisis in the 70s. You read this book, you see how the US government was actually involved with the Arabs, with OPEC, in cutting the supply of oil on purpose to make the oil price go up, to usher in the petrodollar. So as I'm the home of alternative economics and contrarian views, I have to give you my opinion on this crisis that we are going through now. And I don't even really have to use the name of it anymore. And I think the reason they don't want people like me using the name and they demonetize me is because, and they've done so for the last few weeks prior to the crisis intensifying, there wasn't really too much censorship. But I think it's because they don't want people trying to explain what it's all about, especially in the alternative media. They want people to buy into the mainstream political narrative. And how can we believe anything these people say anymore? They've been lying to us for many, many decades. We don't really have to go that far back. We can go far, back to the weapons of mass destruction lie that triggered the war in Iraq, the Gulf of Tonkin that triggered the Vietnam War, and there are many others. So it's very hard to trust anything these people say, and that's dangerous as well. But so I think this is a non-crisis, even though, as I said, it is a crisis. But I think what Lindsey Williams meant by the non-crisis was that it was engineered. It's still real. In the 70s, people were still paying a lot for gas or petrol. It did affect people, and this crisis is affecting people. But I have a feeling, unfortunately, this is the crisis that will usher in some kind of world system, a global system. And why do I say that? Well, because this crisis affects people everywhere around the world. It doesn't respect borders. And I think it's just perfect for them to exploit it. And with that, I'll come to a quote from Rahm Emanuel, who was, I think, chief of staff for President Obama. He was mayor of Chicago. And this is what he said. I think it was in an interview to the Wall Street Journal. He said, "You never let a serious crisis go to waste. And what I mean by that, it's an opportunity to do things you think you could not do before." And I think we're in that situation right now. My feeling is that the markets don't really matter too much anymore. Yeah, I'm going to keep following them. But I think it's getting to a point where things are getting very, very, how can I say, we've never seen it before. Maybe our great-grandparents or grandparents saw it during major wars like World War I and World War II. And this, of course, is not a war, but it's something you could compare it to. So that's the way I feel about it. So what's the way for us to try to fight this powerful force that drives the agenda and has been driving the agenda for thousands of years? Very difficult. I think we can not expect things to get better in terms of the general public, because not many people are aware of these things. So the best you can do is look after yourself, your family, close friends, community. That's the best you can. And that's if they want to listen to you. So I don't have a solution. My solution is to try to know and be aware of what's going on and try to avoid falling into the trap that these people set for you, like debt and many other things. So and I think things are really heating up and it's going quickly. You look at the headlines this morning, Mail Online or Daily Mail, and I'll show you the story here. You can read it yourself. Shutdown could see Britons told to avoid contact outside work and school, with eating out, pub visits, and events stopped as 12 more people are diagnosed. Accountants Deloitte locks down London HQ. Life on hold for 3 months. So there you go. They're really ramping up the crisis. And I'm not saying it's not a crisis. So what else have they done? I think they've canceled the Grand National, which is a very popular sporting event in this country, horse racing. So that's quite big. What about in the States? Well, we have to keep an eye on that. You guys are in the States are probably more aware of what's going on there. I am following it as well. Seems to be a lot of coverage of the political situation. We had Super Tuesday yesterday, and it's strange that all of a sudden Joe Biden, who was like down and out a few weeks ago, is coming to the fore. It's a little bit like John McCain. I think it was, I forgot the year now, 04 or 08. John McCain was like as good as gone, and all of a sudden he just picked up and became the nominee against Obama. I think it was, yeah, maybe you probably remember that, but it feels the same way. Some force there is pushing Joe Biden to the fore. They're probably giving him a lot of money. And so why are they doing that? Well, because they're trying to stop Bernie Sanders. Am I a proponent of Bernie Sanders? No. There's a lot of things that he says I agree with. There's a lot of things President Trump says I agree with. But so that seems to be the main worry in the States right now. But I wouldn't be surprised. In the U.S. as well, we're coming up to the baseball season, or to there's a lot of sporting events that could be affected by this, if it's affecting the UK. Anyway, what else is being reported? Well, the Telegraph says they can use the word, you see that there, businesses can claim compensation for virus, government announces. So who's going to be paying for that? Well, we are, the taxpayer. That's the other thing. That's the whole problem, that everyone's owed something, right? Government to formally register as a notifiable, allowing thousands of businesses to seek compensation if they're affected. Well, there you go. It's just another stimulus for business. They're using this as an excuse. What does the FT say? FT is talking more about the financial side of things. Virus poses economic stimulus dilemma for Lagarde. Fed rate cut piles pressure on ECB to follow suit and ease policy. They're meeting next week. I think they will act. But ECB rates are already really low. They're at minus 50 basis points. So they could increase QE, who knows. By the way, I made a video yesterday afternoon, London time, about the Fed. So I'm not going to talk about the Fed today because I've already talked about it. Just go on my channel and look at the video. I'll put it up in the cards below in the description. Before I go and look at the markets, just wanted to show you a page that I think is interesting to track what's going on as far as the crisis is concerned. I'll put a link to it below in the description. So I wanted to look at 2 weeks ago, which is about February 20th. So if you go on the map, we had 9 cases confirmed in the UK. We had 1 in Belgium. We didn't have any cases in the Netherlands, nothing in Switzerland. That was 2 weeks ago. In Italy, we had 3 cases. That was February 20th. Spain, 2. So now you go to the present day, 4th of March. So we go on top of the little thing on the UK. We got 51. Netherlands, that had no cases 2 weeks ago, has 24. Spain has 165. Italy now has 2,500. 1,000. So yeah, I think it is an engineered crisis. most definitely. It's heaven sent for the powers that be. They don't have to look at their debt-based fiat money system controlled by a cartel of central bankers. They can blame this crisis for it, even though it's just a trigger. It will bring it down, but believe me, they're gonna be in control of the new system, whatever it may be. But it will help them wipe out a lot of debt. That's why you need to have gold and silver. I know it's getting to the point where also making sure you stay healthy is very important. So you can have all the gold and silver in the world, but not get through this the way it seems to be going. Don't want to be an alarmist. So yeah, you can see how the cases are growing quickly. Let's go have a look at the U.S. The problem with the U.S., you see, is that the U.S. has 50 different states. They do a lot of things decentralized, which is not a bad thing. But when it comes to a crisis like this, you need a centralized power. So even tracking the U.S. is more difficult because they do it for different cities. Let's see, right now there's a lot of cities affected in the US. We won't count, but let's go to February 20th. There is a lot less cities, right? So there you go. Let's look at the market. Of course, yesterday was a very interesting day. The Federal Reserve cut rates, markets rallied and then turned around and dumped completely. No confidence. Treasury yields imploded, dropped very sharply. The 10-year yield got to 90 basis points, so below 1%. Gold and silver really turned around. Gold got up to almost 1650. Silver got up to 1750, came back down. But this morning, it's 8:24 a.m. London. Gold has come off. We did go above 1650 after the open, late open of the futures. We had a high of 1653. Right now we're down 4 at 1635. But it's looking a lot better, of course, the technical picture for gold. And I think you really need to keep a hold of your physical gold or whatever you have, silver as well. This is going to get wild and we're going to see very sharp swings in the markets, but the trend should be higher. So right now the stock market has rebounded overnight. We're up 330 and the Dow up 1.2%. That could very well change massively up or down. That's the way things are right now. S&P is up 1% as well. Currencies, dollar got hit again yesterday. Dollar index traded down to like 97. Right now, the dollar is a little bit more stable. It's rebounded very slightly, up a quarter versus the pound. The euro is unchanged, 111.70. Dollar's up 0.25% versus the Japanese yen, 107.39. And the dollar's down 0.2% versus the yuan at 693.40. Crude oil, 47.25 WTI. The 10-year yield is back below 1% this morning, which is strange because it went back above it yesterday towards the close. I think it closed just above 1%. And now with the stock market up, it's back down to 96 basis points. So it's down 6 basis points. So that's kind of like, doesn't make too much sense either. So it's pointing, I think, to more trouble for the stock markets. So, yeah, the energy non-crisis, I wonder what Lindsey Williams is saying about this right now. I haven't heard much from him on the internet. And as I said, I'm not saying the crisis is not happening, but it's engineered. And I wouldn't even put it past the powers that be to be working together with, you might think this is outrageous to say this, but the Americans could be working with the Chinese on this. So that's how deceptive and scheming these people are. So there you go. Let me know what you think below in the comment section. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button, share it far and wide. Think about subscribing to the channel if you haven't yet. And you can also follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Steemit, DTube, and BitChute. And I've got also a new blog, Maneko64.net. I'll be writing a few articles there once in a while. And that's it. So I hope you all have a great day. And I'll talk to you later. Take care. Bye.